The unfinished and money-plagued rail project, the continuing homeless crisis, affordable housing, and rebuilding the economy during the COVID-19 pandemic. All are hot issues for the long list of candidates running this year for Honolulu Mayor. Join our live discussion as the top contenders for the top seat at Honolulu Hale square off. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Election 2020 on Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yenji Denise. Honolulu residents will be electing a new mayor this year. There's a crowded field of 15 candidates ranging from seasoned politicians to first-time contenders. If one candidate does not receive 50% or more of the vote in the primary election, there will be a two-person runoff in the general election. 8 of the 15 candidates are joining us via the internet tonight. We invited the other 7 candidates to share their stance on the issues. The views of those who responded will be available on the Insights page of our website, pbshawaii.org. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet us your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and on the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now to our guests. The order of introduction was determined by random drawing tonight. Kim Marcos Pine represents City Council District 1 from Ewa to Makua in West Oahu. William Bud Stonebraker is the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel and a former state lawmaker. Choon James is a businesswoman and community activist. Mufi Hannemann is the president and CEO of the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association and former Honolulu mayor. Colleen Hanabusa is a former member of Congress and the first woman president of the Hawaii State Senate. Rick Blangiardi is the former general manager of Hawaii News Now. Keith Amemiya is a businessman and attorney. And John Carroll is a former Hawaii state lawmaker. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We want to start with the issue that is top of mind for everyone right now, and that is the coronavirus. Choon James, we'll start with you. How and when does Hawaii open to trans-Pacific travel?
Well, we have got to do something about it. Corona cannot stop us forever. And so I think our state is going the right direction. And the most important thing is that we don't want to have to somehow have the second wave. So that it's so important for us to get it right. And I believe that testing the tourists, testing those who are coming, whoever it is, whether it's residents or non-residents. And also, we want to make sure that we are able to track them. So, yeah, we've got to open up. We cannot be closed forever.
Mr. Stonebraker, let's get to you. What is your view on this?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I completely disagree with Choon. I think that our state is going in the wrong direction. I think if we look at the science and we listen to the European Centers for Disease Control and we look at medical information and the data that we have, what we were told was a plague. We were told to flatten the curve. They moved the goalposts. And now what we have is this major oppressive government holding the people of Hawaii in a state of house arrest. We need to open up our economy, and we need to open up right now. They told us that the death rate would be 3.4%. It wasn't even close to that. They told us that it was going to kill 2.2 million people. It wasn't even close to that. Normally, every year in Hawaii, we have about 600 deaths from the flu. We've had only 17 from COVID-19. And yet we've completely imploded our economy. Almost 120,000 people have lost their jobs. And the information that we're getting from the mayor and the governor and the media, for the most part, is keeping the people of Hawaii in a state of fear. It's creating a state of suspicion among people. It's caused harm to families. It's keeping people separated, keeping people away from their loved ones during their final days on Earth. People have to avoid or skip their surgeries. My neighbor, she had a baby, and they said they tested her for COVID. If she had it, they were going to take her baby away from her. These kinds of things happen in communist countries. It's a shame to say that they are beginning to happen here in Hawaii. We need to change our policy immediately.
Okay, Ms. Hanabusa, I'm assuming that your view is going to be a little bit different than that, but let's hear it. When do you think we should open, and how do we do it safely?
I think the most important thing that we all have to remember is that we have got to watch the people who are working in the industry, as well as our people who will go to Waikiki or areas like that and avail themselves of the services. Until we can safely open up, I think we're asking for all kinds of additional problems. In addition to that, what we have to realize is that we have had these low numbers because we are an island state and because we shut down an island. That's one of the things that you don't see across the nation is the fact no other state has what we have. And by taking that action, and of course some medical professionals believe that we didn't do it quick enough, we have been able to keep the numbers low. We will not be able to really open up to people's satisfaction or people feeling secure until there is a vaccine or there is some legitimate way that people can rely on the testing and we don't have people in power telling us 72 hours is great and someone else saying, no, that's not going to work. So we need to have those answers. When we have those answers, we can safely open.
Wait, are you
I think
saying
one
that
of the ideas.
Are you saying that we shouldn't open until we have a vaccine?
No, I'm saying that would be the one thing that would give people a sense of security. Until then, we have to come up with something else, like either testing before they come to Hawaii or testing after they get to Hawaii and they arrive, but we need to see the testing. I think the real question that a lot of people have now is who's going to pay for the test. If we bring tourists in, who's going to pay for it? And I think that's going to be the challenge. We're going to have to open up. We have to open up safely because we can't have a situation where we're shutting down the state again. That's going to harm the economy even more than what we're dealing with now.
Pardon me, Colleen, you fundamentally don't understand this disease. I don't believe you've done any study about it.
Okay, we want to make sure, Mr. Stonebraker, we want to make sure we hear from everybody on this question. So I'm just going to have to cut you off here and let Mr. Amemiya answer his question. Mr. Stonebraker,
I think you don't understand it, Mr. Stonebraker.
All right, well, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this in just a minute. We want to give Mr. Amemiya a chance.
I think we're both being cut off. So
I think so. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, and we appreciate both of your spirited answers. But let's get to Mr. Amemiya. How do we balance these two competing interests, the health of our community with the health of our economy?
Well, like you said, Yunji, we need to do a healthy balance. We need to make sure that our population is safe and free of the COVID virus. We need to make sure that the spread doesn't continue. But at the same time, while we rely on the advice of our healthcare professionals about the spread of the disease or the virus and the danger of reopening the economy, we need to reopen the economy as soon as possible. Businesses are hurting. People have been out of work for 3 months. We haven't felt the full brunt of the economic impact of COVID, as I think most of my fellow panelists will agree. When PPP money runs out, when unemployment benefits run out, and which will happen soon, people will be suffering even more. So, yes, we need a healthy balance. Yes, we need to make sure that our frontline workers are kept healthy and safe and provided the necessary personal protective equipment, but we need to do what we can to reopen the economy and get it going again.
Okay, Mr. Carroll, what is your take on this? How soon should Hawaii reopen to trans-Pacific travel?
Mr. Budd and Mr. Amemiya both reflect my views. And the one thing that I would say is if we can get rid of the Jones Act and free up shipping so that we can have a decent economy here, we'd be way ahead of the game. I think there's a lot of nonsense going about in terms of false scientific information as to COVID. And I'm 90 years old and my health is fine. And I think that we need to circulate and use those distancing measures and the masks. But other than that, I think we ought to be fully open. And I know that the gymnasiums are, thank goodness.
Okay, Mr. Blangiardi, what's your take?
Well, I'm accepting the governor's announcement is July 31st as far as closure. I say August 1st. I hope that the announcement comes out even sooner so the hotels can start to prepare themselves. I think we all recognize that tourism will be recalibrated going forward. We have to deal with the willingness of travelers, our own safety, the techniques and everything else will be employed. But I'm hoping for August 1st now, if not sooner.
Okay, Mr. Hannemann, obviously in your role representing the hotel industry, you have a different perspective on this. When do you think that the hotel and Trans-Pacific travel overall should reopen, and how do we do that safely?
Thank you for the question. I've been working very hard, along with my other visitor industry colleagues, to make the case to what I call the starting five of decision makers on this issue. That's the governor and the 4 county mayors and the super sub, the lieutenant governor. And from the beginning, I've insisted that we need to make sure that we have a set of standards of hygiene that will make sure that when the workers come back to the workplace, they're going to be protected. Secondly, that the local community believes in our plan to make sure that anyone that comes through those gates at DKI Airport is going to be treated because of the fact with Aloha, but also most importantly because they're going to be screened or tested before they get to the hotels. And last but not least, we want to make sure that whoever comes through is going to come from a place, either they're going to be pre-tested or screened, or when they come here, we're going to be able to find out just what the state of the condition of their health situation is. Having said that, we are facing some very critical decision deadlines that are coming up. In July, we're going to see unemployment checks cease. We're going to see health benefits go away. We're hoping now this will give the extra push now to say we're ready to open. What has been very frustrating about this whole process is that the announcements have been piecemeal. We said from the very beginning, businesses need to plan. Businesses need to forecast. And that has been frustrating to say the least. So we have inter-island travel. That's the first step. But inter-island travel is not going to make sure that the economy starts going. When they said we want to open the local economy first and then the tourism economy, I said that doesn't work. It has to be a parallel path. The local economy will not invigorate and go forward if people are not working. We're an industry that employs over 200,000 people, $17 billion in revenue, and $2 billion in taxes. We understand that people want a more resilient tourism. We get it. More sustainable tourism. We get it. The people who are coming now, that's not the kind of travel we want when we open. They know there's a quarantine in place, and they're still coming. We want quality travelers. We want travelers who are going to respect our culture, our environment, everything that we talk about in the Hawaiian sense of place. So I think now more than ever, we need to give that second deadline date. When is it? Is it August 1st? Then let's go for it. Maybe there's an opportunity for July 15th. But I really believe we're in a good place now, more than ever, because I see the lieutenant governor and the governor kind of agreeing on a screening testing policy, and we in the industry have been waiting a long time for this to happen. So we see the first step. Secondly is obviously setting dates when we can have transpac travel, or if it is international travel. But until they come back, this economy will continue to weaken. And I've said this from the beginning. If you think getting through this pandemic was difficult, you ain't seen nothing yet when it comes to this economic road to recovery. It is going to be daunting. It's going to be challenging. It's going to take us well into 2021.
Okay, Ms. Pine, let's hear from you on this. When do you think we should reopen, and how do we do it?
We can reopen as soon as possible if we can keep people safe. In early March, I was the first elected official to say that for tourism to survive in Hawaii again, we have to pre-test tourists, and they should pay for it. We have for too long depended on one part of our economy to rule everything. And because of people just saying more tourists, we are in a situation where half my district is unemployed, and that is unacceptable to me. People have been given warnings to tourism leaders saying that we are depending too much on you, we are funding too much of you from the state government and the city government, and it's time to diversify our economy. I have been working with leaders from all over the world in other countries where they hardly closed down their economy at all, and they had very low deaths. South Korea is a great example. They had the first COVID situation the same time America did. And they said, we're not going to completely close down our economy. We're going to make sure that our healthcare system is prepared. We are going to make sure that we can test people appropriately who want to have tests. We're going to attract them and trace them, but they have to give permission first. We are in America especially. We don't do things like that without people's permission. We can train 200 people in 2 days, not weeks like what has been told to us by the government here. We have had testimony at the City Council that in 2 days from Dr. Miskovich, you can train 200 people to test our system and to follow people who are sick. And I have to disagree with Bud. This is not like the flu. As the only elected official currently running for mayor, I have seen up close some of the highest cases of COVID in my district. And I had to witness a young, healthy, strong man who worked at a hotel almost die and slowly deteriorate. That was not the flu. So I have taken this very personal, that we must diversify our economy. We can diversify our economy. We just need people in the tourism industry to stop fighting us. We don't have to go back to what we had before. We are all at risk of losing our job again. We can open our economy very soon. It's just going to take the will of leadership to get it done.
Okay, I see some of you jumping in. Rick, please go ahead.
Yeah, the question was pretty simple. When? Okay, and I appreciate what everybody up here has had to say. I think we could all wax poetic about that. Mufi came the closest. When? The answer is, when should we open? And right now, it's encouraging to hear that we might be able to open up on July 15th. But as I understand it, it's closed to July 31st. It's when.
All right, and I know.
I say the sooner the better.
So let me jump in here. We're going to have live music in our bars and restaurants. We can't play music. And the mayor said that we have to wear masks until there's a vaccine. This is coming out of our government. I mean, the World Health Organization and numerous health agencies across the country have said that with this narrative that many of these candidates are following, they're going to come and knock at your door, and if somebody's sick, they're going to take you out of your house. Now, listen, when the government starts to say things like that, we need to be very cautious, because the death of civil liberties comes when people are filled with fear. And this is what the government is doing. They use these numbers of people tested, but the majority of people that get COVID are asymptomatic. They don't get sick. Remember that cruise ship that somebody was sick and they sequestered the thing. Half the people had it. 82% of those people that had it didn't know they had it. There was a fight, a couple weeks ago on UFC where Jacare Souza was fighting. He gets on the scale. He's the most fit man on the planet. He has COVID. He doesn't know it. His cornermen have COVID. They don't know it. This is a mild infection, according to the European director of the CDC, Johan Yasecki. So
okay, well, let's take a step off of COVID for just a second. Let's take a step off of COVID, because I want to make sure that people get a sense of who each one of you are, and to get there, I want to talk a little bit about your backgrounds. We have a very mixed panel in that some of you have a lot of political experience.
May I address the diversification issue, please?
Well, we will get to you.
I think that's very
I will let you in for just 20 seconds, because I have a lot to get to tonight.
Yanji, if you let him in, we got to let all of us in. You better just move on.
So let me say
We're all going to start interrupting. No, Mufi, you have to let Yanji ask the question. We only have an hour here.
And we will get to diversifying our economy, absolutely.
20 seconds?
Let's give him 20 seconds, and then let's move on.
Okay, then you can give us all 20 seconds.
There's no way.
Yeah, we all get 20 seconds.
This idea of diversifying the economy now, I'm surprised it would come from someone from a district where many of those people in West Oahu depend on the hospitality industry. You can't diversify this economy overnight. It has to be done within the tourism industry, sports tourism, film tourism, agritourism, edutourism. That's how you diversify the economy. You build it on our core tourism, core competence, which is tourism. And Rick, we're hoping that July 15th,
I think we've got the 20.
With all due respect to Mr. Hannemann, you got us here. Half my constituents are suffering because of what you just said, that only tourism is the only solution. You have been saying this since you were the head of DBED, and I have looked in the eyes of my constituents who can't eat right now. And we have the ability to improve our economy to not just tourism. I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying diversify our economy. I have situations where in 6 months, we can get alternative agriculture with new inventions that will heal people, with products that are in demand around the world, a multi-billion-dollar economy that we can start going in 6 months. And you haven't even looked at that.
Well,
we cannot risk
one thing that is very clear from the two of you talking is that you're both seasoned politicians, and that brings us to our next topic, which is that there are a number of candidates tonight who have not held political office before. Rick Blangiardi, we'll start with you. Why is that an advantage?
Well, my body of work is very different than everybody, the other candidates. I mean, I've been involved in very large, complex organizations for a long time, and the kind of decision making and quite honestly, the team building that we've done, and just overall in the private sector, I just think it's a very different approach. And quite honestly, I think the way I would approach the job would be that way as well.
Okay, Mr. Amemiya, does not having a political background help or hurt?
No question it helps. I mean, I'm running for mayor because we need change. I've been going around the island, hearing from constituents, and they all say the same thing. They want change. They want new leadership. They want fresh perspective. They want someone to restore trust in government. I'm running because I care about the community, and I want to create a better Oahu for everyone, especially our younger generations. The genesis for my running for mayor started when I ran the Hawaii High School Athletic Association, and I went to every community and talked to many people, many working class families, and I was astounded, I was shocked at how many working class people were struggling to survive. They had to make hard decisions, whether it's paying the rent or paying a car bill, paying for gas, or paying for a medical bill, or deciding whether to stay home and in Hawaii and struggle or move away to the mainland, away from family and friends. I mean, that's totally unacceptable. I'm running for the working class people who deserve a better chance at surviving in Hawaii. I'm running because they deserve a chance, like many of us on this panel, who had an opportunity to live, work, play, and raise a family in Hawaii, and they deserve that opportunity as well. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. James, you're the last of the non-political folks. Tell us a little bit about why that would be an advantage.
Right. I have been a small business woman for over 34 years, and I have actually personally participated at the City Hall for decades. And for the past 12 years, I have been focused on the fiscal prudence, on ethics, on keeping our farmlands, and all the good governance issues. And one of the things that I have realized is that we really need to put our residents first. And one of my suggestions was that we need to put a property tax cap on our kupuna who have lived in their homes for more than 20 years. We need to cap that because so many of them are so worried that they'll be priced out of their home, that the children cannot remain in a home, and that family home will be lost. And although I have suggested it, it kind of like fell on deaf ears on many of my suggestions. And so those are some of the issues that I'm worried about, and I think that we really need to put our residents first. And so my theme is that I will use this uku comb. I will use this uku comb to really review all the major budgets.
Okay, well, you always got to admire someone who brings a prop. Thank you so much. We also want to mention that we have had a little bit of trouble with the phones tonight. We are working on getting that fixed. You can continue to email your questions, and we've seen a number of them here. For those with political experience, I want to get to you as well. And, you know, Mufi, a lot of these questions are about rail. So let's talk a little bit about that. How is that going to happen, especially with the budgets we have now because of COVID?
Yes, I'd be very happy to answer that question. When I was mayor, we put together a plan to put rail on track after the people approved it in 2008. The majority of them did. It had the strong support of the Obama administration, of Senator Inouye. The funding proposals went before the legislature and the city council, and they all voted to approve it. So basically, in going forward, when I left City Hall, rail was a little bit under $5 billion. We were on time, on budget. There was a discretionary fund of about, contingency fund of about $750 million. Now, something happened between $5 billion to $9 billion. And in those 10 years, I was out of office. So obviously, there's been some managerial questions there, some oversight questions there. There's people in this panel tonight. They voted every time the budget came before the city council, they voted up. They even voted for Act 1, which says in effect, city property taxes will be used to float bonds to pay for the project. That person had an opportunity to say no. She did it. She voted for every one of those projects. We also have someone here also served on the HART board, served as the HART chair, and some of those cost increases exploded. So my feeling is this. It's there. We can't turn back the clock. It will cost billions of dollars to stop it and basically tear it down. So we have to figure out a way of how to push it through. My feeling is this. I'm going to see it through as the person who started it. There are mistakes that have been made. I think I have a plan to overcome those mistakes. Number one, let's make sure that we exhaust every federal funding opportunity. The FDA owes the HART project
well, I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm so sorry because we want to get to everyone. And Ms. Hanabusa, he's obviously referring to you when he talks about the HART board. So what's your take on what should happen with rail?
You know, I think that has forgotten a lot of things. For example, the problem with the rail funding, and then the audit that was done by the state auditor makes it very clear that, remember, we started to collect money for rail, not HART. HART doesn't come into existence till 2011. There's about $700 million that the auditor as well as the feds don't know really what happened. Let's also understand where the cost overruns and where the challenges came from. You do not issue contracts, and these are done under the Mufi administration. You do not issue contracts before an environmental impact statement is done. And when you do that, you've got these problems. And let me tell you about what happened when you were on the HART board, is when you're told, this is the HART board that was established in 2010 by the voters, and Mufi was, of course, mayor when this was all being created, that the HART board shall not in any way interfere with administrative functions of HART. That was in the charter. So when I got on the board, I was told very clearly, you do not have a say other than the hiring and firing of whoever is the executive director. Sounds familiar? Similar language to why Justice Levinson left the police commission. Very similar. So when you talk about it, I agree. I agree that the costs went out of this world, and I agree that what happened was it wasn't properly funded in the beginning. And I will tell you, in Kim's defense, on the $250 million, you can't take out 5307 funds, which is the bus funding, which is part of the original financing plan which they proposed.
Okay,
By
I want to get to Kim Pine
they already
directly.
knew was over $7 million. 2014.
Councilwoman, I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Oh, I think we don't have your audio right now.
Okay, how's this?
Perfect.
Sorry about that. When I was in the House of Representatives, and Mufi remembers this well, I voted against the project because there's something seriously wrong with the numbers back then. In the beginning of the legislative session, Mufi Hannemann stated that we needed a 1% general excise tax for the funding of rail. And somehow, by the end of session, they said they only needed 0.5%. Do you want to know why it went from $5 billion to $9 billion? It's because it was never $5 billion to begin with. We were lied to back then. And the biggest problem with what had happened in the last 10 years is, Mufi, I respect you, but you quit. You quit to run for governor at the most critical time when we needed a strong leader to finish what you started. When I got on the council and Colleen got on the HART board, we inherited a big mess. And I have to say this very publicly. As mayor, I would advocate for the federal government and the FBI to take over this project. I believe that our town is too small for a multi-billion-dollar project. The temptation for corruption and cheating and mismanagement has been too high. It's why it was the council that finally said, we have had enough, and we started the audit of HART. And we found a lot of inefficiencies, mistakes that a high school person would make, not a person that makes six figures that's supposed to lead this project. So I believe with all of my constituents that are suffering so much that these people who have wasted their money should go to jail. I am hopeful and looking forward to the federal investigation being over. I believe that the federal government at this point on must take over this project and have someone from the FBI on the ground at heart every day, helping to manage the project and making sure that all ethics are followed and that corruption ends once and for all.
My goodness, Kim, you vote for every project. You voted yes for every project. You might go to jail yourself if the FBI does the work right.
Wow, that's quite a charge. Okay,
You've got to
let's
stand
get
on
to
your record.
Let's get to
I am standing on my record, too. I am standing on my record.
These years, and you have voted yes for every real big budget, and now you are not talking about that.
It is
Your
because
budget,
I
your
believe in the
record
Constitution.
Oh, my
It's because I
goodness.
believe in the Constitution.
Come on,
I
you
voted
guys,
against the
come on.
project.
Well,
I
let's
voted
get to
against
another
Congress.
issue.
Yes for every project.
I appreciate the
people
passion.
have
Let's get to
desire to
another
work on
issue that is very important right now, and that is the question of homelessness.
But I ask that everybody be
well,
polite when you're speaking to each other because it's very gold.
Can I speak to that?
Mr. Stonebraker, actually, I'd love you to answer this one. Andrew
Yeah, the
Dahlberg.
rail thing, though, everybody was asked about that.
Please
I'd like
go
to
ahead.
address it.
All right, go ahead.
I voted against the tax increase when I was in the House. You talked about politicians with experience. It seems like a lifetime ago. I was in the House from 2000 to 2006. And I remember saying on the floor that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary tax increase. And my words proved prophetic because the thing is just out of control. And we need to close up and stop the hemorrhaging. And I propose that we rethink where we stop temporarily because of this current situation and our economy going in the direction that it's going. We should shore up our finances at Middle Street and redirect and use our existing mass transit to get the thing working without expanding any further so that it can be used. But the problem with this whole thing is that none of the funds that should have been going to fix our parks or our roads have been going there. The thing is like a money sink. It's just sucking everything up. And so I just wanted to answer that. Everybody else talked about the rail, but
No, I think that's good. I just want to say one thing about rail.
What we're talking about, the vote that we took in and I voted with reservations. The vote was whether or not the city would actually authorize it. It was the city council who did it. The legislature did not authorize it. It was the city council who did it.
Mr. Blangiardi, I see that you want to jump in. Let's give Rick the floor for just a second here.
Get your facts straight.
Just trying to tell these people.
I think anybody
tax increase when it was.
This forum definitely has its challenges.
You have to get it straight. Be honest.
Let's take a
be
breathe.
truthful.
You guys are so hilarious. That's why people won't trust politicians.
I know I'm a terrible, I'm not quite the strong referee that I need to be right here, but let's give the floor to Rick Blangiardi.
Just remember facts and remember what history really was.
I think the point of interest is where we are now. Where we are now, and what are we going to do about where we are now, and how do we go forward from here? You know, this is time for a reality check. We'll see. The P3 is due in July. We'll see what gets produced there. We'll see what the bids are. You know, this project was breaking this city before COVID-19. I don't have to recite a litany of things that we're going through right now. Everybody's well aware. It seems improbable. So this is about making the hard call on where we are in the reality, and we'll see what plays itself out. None of us are in office for 6 months. A lot of stuff is due now. It's a kind of decision-making on a going-forward basis. I think the historical stuff, depending on who you want to listen to, you can hear all kinds of different ways. It's decision-making time now.
Okay, Mr. Amemiya, what do you think about what the Councilwoman said about turning that over to the federal government?
What would your decision be,
Rick?
Well, it's a function of money, Kim. It is a function of money. This is a 100-year project. A 100-year project. We may very well not be able to go forward at this point in time. This is a gold-plated project for a Silver Line community from the standpoint of the amount of people, what it takes to pay for a project like this. And so a lot has gotten sacrificed.
Wait, Rick.
So if it comes down to that, we can't, we're not going to look at property taxes. You've got decreased revenues. You probably have a bid coming in that's going to be much higher for the city center segment than was ever budgeted for. It already is a multiple over the original package. So at the end of the day right now, it's about what we do. It may very well be that this becomes a temporary stoppage in a place nobody wanted for 4 or 5 years. You can always start to build again. But right now, we've got to deal with reality.
All right.
And the reality is, this is way over budget.
I do want to make sure that we also hear from Mr. Carroll. We didn't give him a chance to speak on this.
Thank you so much. Yeah. First of all, the thing that needs to be done is you've got to look at the leadership that got us to where we are. And everyone who's been in office for the last 10 or 15 years is involved in that. I'm not faulting them because I wasn't there doing much about it. What needs to be done is we need to have a total forensic investigation, a forensic audit, and they need to stop all construction until we know where we are, how much we owe, how much it's going to take to go on, and what are the options if we stop the rail even at the stadium or some other place, or how we're going to use it. And I think
up at Middle Street.
Well, you can talk about anything, but basically there's a whole other, the maglev is a possibility. There's other things that can be done to get it to go out to the university, but we do not know what we have, where we're going, or how to get there. And also, I agree with whoever said some people ought to be in jail. With a forensic audit and an investigation, we will find that out. And I will do that the first day I'm in office.
Okay. Mr. Amemiya, what's your take on rail?
Well, before I answer that question, I mean, this exchange is symptomatic or emblematic of what's wrong in politics today. You got people talking over each other. You get people saying that others should go to jail, interrupting each other. No, that's not my style of leadership. My style of leadership will be collaboration, bringing people together, getting people to work civilly and in the interest of the greater good. And so this is actually a perfect segue into my answer on rail, because this is why we are where we are today, and people are tired of it. In terms of rail, as some of our previous speakers have mentioned, rail was a mess before construction started. Rail was a mess during construction. But we need to sharpen our pencils and do what we can to complete the project at Ala Moana. There's too much at stake. Stopping at Middle Street won't do anything. People are not going to ride the rail as much if it stops at Middle Street. We need to finish it at Ala Moana as planned. We can't afford to return about $800 million in federal funding that we've already received. We're slated to receive more federal funding. And we also have to remember that rail is an important catalyst to the economy in terms of transit-oriented development. That'll be a big stimulus to the economy. It'll help build more affordable housing that's sorely needed. It'll create retail and commercial opportunities, and it'll also reduce the number of cars on the road and help our environment along the way. There's many other reasons, but I'll stop and let other people speak.
All right, let's go to this next subject because I think this is a really important one. Andrew Dahlberg says, here's my question. What would you do to help reduce the number of homeless veterans? Let's talk about homelessness. What would any of you, and I'll let whoever wants to jump in first, jump in. What would you do differently than what's already been done when it comes to addressing the issue of homelessness?
I think with the homelessness issue, what I would bring is a spirit of collaboration and cooperation. When I was mayor the first time around, you didn't have that state and county cooperation that you see now. I see a laser-like focus at the county level. I see a laser-like focus at the state level. And in the present job that I have as the head of the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association, we raise over $2.7 million every year. Bulk of that funding goes to homelessness. I even went to the state legislature, and thanks to the support of the legislature, we were able to have matching funds of $1 million, coupled with the $1 million that came from the industry. So what I propose is this. I think now and going forward, I think we have to be more creative in helping the homeless. I like what Dwayne Carrizo has done near the airport there off Sand Island Road. I think those kind of collaborative effort where you have a philanthropist willing to step forward and you have the city expedite the permitting process, reach out, in my instance, to be able to bring other partners in to help with this homeless problem. But I really believe at the end of the day, that's what it's going to take. It's going to have a mayor has to be creative, not look at traditional funding sources from government, but have that person reach out into the community, have that person bring private partners together, because this continues to be a very vexing problem. And obviously, it's also going to require someone to go in there and has ideas for affordable housing. The Department of Planning and Permitting needs to be fixed. It's still taking way too long for permits to occur. So as experience of having been elected to this position twice, we are in a wartime crisis. we need to go and examine every permit that is there to build affordable housing, work with the DPP to see if we can push those projects out the door. Because there's two important ingredients to economic recovery. One is our tourism industry. The other is construction. We put the two together.
Okay,
hopefully
I gotta leave you there. Let's go to Mr. Stonebraker. What is your
I'd like to
take
point out
on,
the fact that,
what's your
if I
take
may,
on
on
homelessness? What do we do differently? Hang on just a
Well,
second.
what we need to do
Rick, we'll get
differently
to
is
you
recognize
next.
who's homeless. And what has shifted over the last several years is the composition of the homeless. Now, if you listen to the experts, 80 to 90% are either mentally ill or suffering from bad drug addiction. That's a different component than we had the pocket kakako, which were homeless mothers, single parents, kids, whatever. It's a different composition. And so that's part why the sit-lie bans have not been effective in just pushing people around. Compassionate disruption, I think we're all compassionate people, has not worked. We have to do things systemically. We need to invest in facilities. We need to put these people in places and provide resources for them. These people are not capable for the most part. I'm telling you, you can verify this. 80 to 90% of the people are either mentally ill or suffering from very bad drug addiction, are not capable of taking care of themselves, which is why we're seeing it spread the way we're seeing it, and it's causing all the other issues that are popping up. We need to address that way. Wayne's project was a great project, a different profile of homeless, and there still are some of those people. And there's probably going to be even more as a result of this economy. But we are not attacking it systemically. We need to do something different because it obviously hasn't worked in what we've been doing against this population.
I want to give all of you a chance to also, for the viewers that I know we're having some trouble with the phone lines, the number is 462-5005. Again, 462-5005. Sorry about that. And Mr. Stonebraker, let's get to you. What would you do differently than what's been done when it comes to homelessness?
Well, I think we need to decipher, and make the difference. I live in Waimanalo, and we have a large homeless population, but they would consider themselves to be houseless because Hawaii is their home. Mm-hmm. And we have to recognize that people that are from Hawaii and are homeless, we need to treat them with compassion and give them all the help that they can get. If people come here, though, however, and they just want to move their homeless problem from another state, I think we should send them back. It's not upon us. We shouldn't be pressed by others to bear the social services and the costs. I mean, homelessness is everywhere, but they don't have to come to Hawaii just because it's a nice climate. We need public and private partnerships to work together. I work with a group here. Their little village is called Tauhale, or Mahi'ai Hui Aina, and I planted their kalo for them. I'm also a kalo farmer on the side. So we're working together to solve the problem. I'm not thinking of how the government can do it. We're actually doing it in Waimanalo. We're working with the homeless, and they're doing well. They're good people, and they do want to work, and they just need a chance. And so when we move forward, we have to recognize fundamentally that the government doesn't actually solve problems. It can only allow people to do it. And by getting off of their back, by letting permitting become easier, these are the kinds of things that the people in Hawaii will solve these problems. And I believe that we just need to trust them to do it by giving them the chance. If they're coming from outside, I think we need to send them home.
Let's get to the Councilwoman on this issue. What would you do differently? Do you agree with the compassionate disruption, so to speak, or is there another way?
I would have changed everything. I personally am the only candidate here tonight that worked at a homeless shelter, and I chose to work at a homeless shelter helping veterans. And our belief has always been that you offer opportunity, you offer a place where you can deal with your mental health, you make sure they have the sustenance to feed themselves, and then you make sure that if they are able, that they have access to affordable housing and a job. I want to just say to Mr. Amemiya, just because you're passionate and you're strong, it doesn't mean that you're not collaborative. I'm very proud of the work that I've done with mayors, with governors, with city council members, with senators and state representatives to ensure that my leeward coast is no longer left behind. It is important to have someone strong in this next term as mayor, and someone that is passionate and cares about the people that they represent and doesn't just read talking points that someone else gave to them.
Okay, This
is real.
Mr. Amemiya,
what I would do is I voted against the sit-lie bills in Waikiki. And what did I say? I said, you are just going to move people from one street to the other. We need to provide housing. I have provided funding in the budget, requested the mayor to use CARES Act funds to go ahead and build 5,000 tiny homes and to use that money for medical care and mental health care. And a lot of those things haven't happened. The first thing I would do as mayor is to ensure that on the first hour that I'm mayor, to declare a state of emergency so that I can release all those funds that this current mayor is refusing to release so that no one is ever left behind and no one ever is living on the streets again.
We're going to run out of the hour soon, so Mr. Amemiya, I want to give you a chance to respond. A lot of the questions also that are coming in are about the high cost of living, and that obviously ties into the homeless issue. There's the mental health piece that Mr. Blangiardi talked about, but if you could address...
Excuse me, before you let Amemiya go in, could I mention about the homeless veterans?
We will get to you.
There's a lot of housing that's available at Fort Island, at Hickam, that they can get the homeless veterans. There's something like 40,000 of them, and we can take care of them in a flash. And the rest of the things that they're talking about cost money, and we have an economy that's practically bankrupt.
Okay, Mr. Amemiya, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Yanji. As far as my earlier comments on collaboration and commitment and working together, I stand by it. The people are tired of the status quo and the bickering and the partisanship that's existing in politics today. In terms of homelessness, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Blangiardi on his statistics that 80 to 90% of the homeless people are mentally ill or have a drug abuse problem. Many of them are not. It comes down to this. They can't afford housing. Housing is just too expensive in Hawaii. It's skyrocketed to unsustainable levels where most people can't afford housing or they can barely afford housing, and it's taking too much of their paycheck, and it's a big reason why the cost of living is so high in Hawaii. So what we need to do is make a full force, 100% commitment to building affordable housing in Hawaii. I'm the first and only candidate that put together a comprehensive housing for all plan that seeks to address the affordable housing shortage in our islands. The other thing that we need to do for sure is there are drug abuse and mentally ill people out on the streets. And for sure, the city needs to do its part by creating more drug abuse treatment centers and mental health centers to get those people off the street. They're the most noticeable, but like Mr. Stonebraker will tell you, and Councilmember Pine and even Colleen Hanabusa will tell you, there's a lot of people living out on the beaches in tents, and they're there because they just can't afford a place to live with a roof over their heads.
Okay, Ms. James, we want to get to you.
Keith, I didn't make that point.
Right. Okay, you guys.
Listen, in Hawaii, people have lived on the beach by their own choice for a long time. Plus, Keith,
wait, let's get to Choon James on this, please.
I mean,
I have to
Thank you.
Ms. James, go ahead.
Because housing plan
I
is
want to let
everything
you
that I
know.
passed at the city
Come
council.
on, Kim, give everybody a chance. Okay, I have been testifying as a citizen against the sit and lie because I don't think it makes any sense to criminalize the houseless. And with that, with that action, the mayor has lost so much money in legal settlements over civil rights. I have been in the real estate sector for over 34 years. I know what's wrong. I know what's going on. And to be polite, I know what we really need is to build affordable rentals so that we can take our houseless people off the street. It's not good for them. It's not good for us. Our streets should be clean. It should be safe. And it really should not be hampered by our homeless people living on the street. They are human too, right? So yes, there are those who have mental challenges, there are those who are drug, addiction. But the bottom line is that they need a roof over their head, and we can do it. We can do it if we, again, use this uku-comb to it and make sure that the finances go to the right place and to the right people.
Let's get to Colleen Hanabusa on this question. Would you continue the compassionate disruption, the so-called sit-lie ban, if you were the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu?
Indeed, I think the question originally came in about homeless vets from the listener or the watcher, and I think that one of the things that we should all remember is that when government has a political will to do something, they can. Remember President Obama said there will be no homeless vets on the street by the year 2016. And that was his promise. And there was an all-in-all effort to take care of that in the building of shelters. I happen to know, because in 2006, we had an influx of people on the Waiʻi coast because there were sweeps done, I think Magic Island, and they came to the Waiʻi coast, and they built shelters there. And the question became, who goes into the tents? We used to call it tent cities. Who goes into that? And we found out that it was actually not the people from the coast, but it was COFA migrants who were somehow manipulated out to the coast to do it. But one thing I have come to learn, and this is maybe a positive part of COVID, one of the things that I have come to learn is that you cannot force people to want to have help. But many of the people who are homeless, I'm not talking about the houseless. Houseless, there's no excuse for why we can't take care of the houseless. But for those who are homeless and do not want to go into any kind of sheltered position, what the Waiʻi situation taught me is they have to want to do it. So with COVID, the fascinating thing about COVID with those little pup tents that are coming up is people, because of the fear for their health and well-being, are putting themselves in there. Now it's government's turn to go in and make it so that they can actually have the necessary social services. They've got them in a situation that they want to be in. Give them the social services, and that's what we need. That's what we need to do. This is how we need to begin to address it. Take a bad situation like COVID and figure out how we go and make it better. And to the sit and lie situation, sit and lie is already ruled out by the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit said it is cruel and unusual to do sit and lie unless you have adequate shelters.
Okay.
So,
we have to stop you here because we just have about 3 minutes left, and we are likely headed to a runoff when it comes to all of you. So I want to go down the line and ask you, if you don't make it to that runoff, if not you, then who? Choon James, we'll start with you. Who on this panel would you support?
I couldn't think of anybody else because out of this whole group, I'm the only one who is outside the system. I'm not an insider. I'm not a politician, and I'm the only one who is not collecting any donations from PAC and lobbyists. So seriously, it's the people's choice. But if you folks want to really have real change, and if you want to take the government back, I really am the only alternative.
Well, this is supposed to be a lightning round, so let's try to make the rest of it nice and quick. Mr. Stonebraker, if not you, then who?
Well, I think that we can't move forward in this city unless we recognize that we've been operating under a narrative, and the narrative is to keep people in a sense of fear and bondage. And unless we come to the reality that this thing that's come over us, that's threatening to tear families apart and ruin our economy, if we don't recognize that and we try to move forward with a lot of these mandates, forcing hair salons and nail salons to make you fill out medical forms.
You're not answering the question, sir. We got to keep going on.
The point is this, that we cannot move forward in this prison-like state. It will kill aloha. It will kill the spirit of aloha.
Ms. Hanabusa,
and we can't allow that to happen here.
We have to move on to you. If not you, then who?
Colleen, that's for you.
Was it me?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I missed it. I was listening to Bud. Contrary to what others may say, I think that people want someone with experience and someone who they feel can help them through this very terrible crisis. I thought about this question, and I will tell you. I would probably, and I will answer it straight, I won't give you verbiage, I would probably say, go support Kimberly Pine.
Okay.
Kimberly Pine has experience, but in addition to that, she's a woman.
All right.
When you look at the history of Honolulu,
I want to get to all of them. Mr. Amemiya, who would you endorse on this panel, if not yourself?
This election is pivotal. We can choose the status quo, or we can choose change. I go for hope and change. And let's do this together.
Okay, but that's not a name. So, okay, Mr. Carroll, how about you? If it's not you, we have less than a minute. So please, if you could just give us a name.
Mickey Mouse.
No.
Okay.
Another question for
Mr. Blangiardi, we'll toss it to you.
Yeah. I don't dislike anybody on this panel. I would not have entered this race if I thought anybody on this panel should be the mayor. So right now, we're all competitive people, and that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Mr. Hannemann?
This is very different. This is not normal times. You can't take a chance with someone who's not been a mayor. I've been a mayor. I've been elected twice. When President Obama came to town in 2008, he said, and I quote, "One of the best mayors in the country who has just made
we've heard you
Honolulu
answer
even
it.
better than it was before is Mufi Hannemann." So what I'd be
Last one,
prepared to
Ms.
do is
Pine, are you
consider
going
all
to
these very worthy
return the
candidates
favor,
for
return the
appointments in my
compliment to
administration.
Ms.
Thank
Hanabusa
you.
tonight?
Well, I'm doing this for one reason, and that's to make sure that my daughter can afford to live here and be safe here and have a life here. And I think it's time for a woman to take this place. So I certainly would return the compliment to Colleen Hanabusa.
Okay, mahalo to all of you for joining us tonight. Of course, we thank our guests, John Carroll, Keith Amemiya, Rick Blangiardi, Colleen Hanabusa, Mufi Hannemann, Choon James, Bud Stonebraker, and Kim Marcos Pine. Next week on Insights, the race for the Honolulu Prosecuting Attorney's Office, another open seat with a crowded field of candidates, will join us. Please join us then. I'm Yunji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Until next time, aloha.